your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Happy New Year. Thanks so much for joining us for our first weekend cast of 2025. In this program, we will highlight Canada's top weather story of 2024, as well as predictions for 2025. And have you made your New Year's resolutions yet? Well, we have some tips on how to keep them. But first, it should come as no surprise that one of Environment and Climate Change Canada's most impactful weather story of the year was the wildfire that tore through Jasper National Park, destroying a third of the town. The weather agency released its annual top 10 list of the country's most impactful weather stories, ranked by severity, human and economic impact. Take a look.
Warming faster than the global average, particularly in the north, Canada is increasingly becoming a land where weather extremes are the new norm. A warming atmosphere is increasing the intensity of events like heat waves. It is also intensifying heavy rainfall because warmer air can hold more moisture. Cape Bretoners are no strangers to winter storms, but the historic snowfall in early February was unprecedented. In downtown Sydney, over 100 centimeters of snow fell. The storm also blanketed much of central and eastern Nova Scotia, along with eastern Prince Edward Island. Southern Ontario faced a summer of sporadic and heavy rainfall in 2024. These storms highlighted how uneven these rain events can be and the sheer volume that can fall in a short amount of time. As flames encroached on Jasper, firefighters battled relentlessly, donning specialized breathing gear as they worked tirelessly to protect infrastructure and extinguish new blazes. The wildfire caused $880 million in insured losses, making it Canada's second costliest wildfire disaster after the 2016 Fort McMurray fire. Jasper National Park, a beloved Canadian treasure, now bears permanent scars, its landscape forever changed by the largest wildfire in its history.
And while we are on the topic of weather, we caught up with the editor of Farmer's Almanac magazine to find out just what's in store for us this winter and the forecast for the rest of 2025.
Let's get right into the nitty-gritty. Bad news first. You say cold for Ontario and eastern Manitoba?
Ooh, you're really one of the few areas in North America we're seeing snow cover and cold most of the winter season. That's what our prediction is.
And Saskatchewan won't have the mountains of snow, but some cold temperatures?
Absolutely. I was looking and the cold snaps are so frequent. We're saying, I'll read my notes here, early and late December, early and late January, and mid and late February. That's kind of all winter.
Wow. And now southern Alberta, which is where we are right now, let's talk about your prediction there, as well as southern BC. Also below average temperatures, but it's interesting that you predict that the very southern areas of Alberta, which is where we are, we will have a wet winter that isn't so cold.
We are saying wet, more precipitation overall. So it depends. If you get snow, you're going to see snow. I think it's kind of a sense of how warm will it be. I mean, all those cold snaps, that we're seeing really in the central part, really into the plains, all the way into, the U.S. That's what we're calling for the most snow. And then, yes, mild and wet pretty much everywhere else. As you go further east, there are some drier spots in Canada, but even as you go out to the Maritimes, wet again.
So then let's talk about the Maritimes and Quebec. And what's the outlook for Quebec, Newfoundland, and the other maritime provinces?
All the way east, we're saying really, really wet and precipitation. But if you're going inland, as you go inland, there's the chance for more snow. But yeah, it's a milder winter overall, really, for North America, except for kind of the very heart of our landmass, where we'll see cold. It's because of the jet stream. It's wavier, it's slower, and those cold blasts have a good shot at coming down quite a few times during the winter.
Now, it seems that there's some times where the Old Farmer's Almanac and what, say, like Environment Canada would predict, or like what they forecast, kind of clash. Are there different models that the Old Farmer's Almanac uses? Maybe you could explain some of that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're kind of crazy, right? Trying to predict long range weather over a year in advance when people trying to predict it tomorrow don't always get it right. So there's that. But I think the main thing that differentiates us from pretty much all other long range weather forecasting is how much emphasis we put on magnetic storms on the sun. Those solar storms. Lots of people further south than ever before seeing the aurora borealis. That's the cycles of storms on the sun. It's hitting its peak. It just is peak of 25, and then the cycle 26. Those are 11-year cycles, and we have 25 years of records, which is an incredible set of data. And so it's not like magnetic storm, hot summer, right? It affects many aspects of what affects our weather. But what we are able to do is go back through time and layer that incredible information on top of climate science and meteorology, and just look for those patterns. And that is essentially what we do with our long range forecasting.
Now, the Old Farmer's Almanac is not just about weather. It also includes a variety of interesting articles. Can you share a bit about the endangered cattle breeds? Because I had no idea about this.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories. Comeback cows. Yes, and so we were looking at cattle breeds that are really making a comeback in Canada. There's a Speckle Park is a breed from let's see, that's from Alberta, right? And so things that we've learned about these breeds is that they have a lot of resiliency, just like heirloom tomatoes. Say they might be more resistant to blight. Well, these animals, heritage breeds, often had to do three things: plow, make milk, and feed the owner. And so those are really wonderful qualities today, and we're finding they might have natural resistance to things like hoof disease, or just be able to survive on a better variety of feed that isn't a monoculture. So lots of advantages with these heritage breeds, and the fact that Canadian breeders are bringing them back so successfully is a great news story.
And you also take a look at whether planet Earth is on a collision course with a collection of space rubble.
Right, I wrote that one. Yeah, Bennu. I became, let's say, fascinated by this near asteroid. It's not going to hit us, so that's the good news. Jazz hands. But what's really cool about it is it's very close to us. And last September, we went and grabbed. Well, we came back with dirt from it, and so this incredible set of studies is going on now. And the interesting thing about Bennu is that it was likely created very close to when the Earth was created. So we can get some information there, more information hopefully about the creation of our own planet, because this has been hanging around for 400 million years and has got some of the same stuff that we do.
Now that we're in a brand new year, how are your New Year's resolutions going? Did you make any this year? Is there a secret to keeping them? Well, in this previously recorded interview, I chatted with Charles and Charlene Vanderacre. They're counselors and life coaches with C2C Support Services Group in Lethbridge, and they offer some invaluable tips for keeping those resolutions. With making New Year's resolutions, is this a good idea? Is it good to, it's good to have goals, right? Obviously, but how many of us make these resolutions and then don't follow through with them?
Absolutely, it's good to have goals. Making goals at any time of the year, not just New Year's, or any time of life is important. And New Year's is just a societally accepted start date because it's the beginning of a new calendar year. Yeah,
to put it simply, when as human beings we stop goal setting, and therefore we stop learning, we've really got nothing left to live for. So goals are really, really important to us all. The goals don't have to be world-changing, or they don't have to be life-shattering, or anything like that, but they have to mean something to us as individuals.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think people sometimes make resolutions just as turning over a new leaf in life. And like you said, it's something to live for. I totally agree with that. So we have the typical resolutions, like, of course, losing weight, stop smoking, which are good. Are there any kinds of areas that you would see as being more important than others in which to make a New Year's resolution?
Well, because we usually base resolutions on what we call our basic human needs, there's kind of a pyramid involved to the importance of those resolutions. The highest level of importance would be what we would call spiritual resolutions. Now, that can mean religion, it can mean faith, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. So when I say spiritual, I mean things that are greater than ourselves. So it can be things like helping the homeless, or working at a soup kitchen, saving the environment or saving animals, that sort of thing. The second level of importance would be our own psychological needs. So then we're working on things like our own emotions, we're working on destructive behaviors, that sort of thing. And the final level really would be our physical needs. So that would be our bodies in particular. But it's really important to understand that the higher we go on that pyramid, the better it's going to work. Because when you're at the top of that pyramid, we're focusing on other things, and we become more content with life than if we just focus on ourselves. So, and when we do that, our mental and our physical health actually follow along rather than getting us stuck on just one level.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense because most of us just tend to focus on the body, right? On like personal looks, losing weight, that type of thing, going to the gym more. Stopping smoking, of course, is a healthy one. But you're right. I think when you focus more on like the spiritual, as you said, kind of more those motivators to get out there and help the world, help society, help others. I think that's such a great advice there. So we've seen some of the stats indicating that people are 10 times more likely to make improvements if the person takes the time to write out their New Year's resolution goals. So is there something to this that the person somehow takes a bit more seriously if they're written down?
It's actually a brain function. When you write down a goal or a resolution, especially if it's sufficiently detailed, and then you sign and date it, what you're doing is you're promising yourself that you're going to do this. You're essentially making yourself your own accountability partner. And inwardly, you interpret that as an oath. And when your brain accepts an oath, it actually starts to unconsciously cause you to do what you've promised to do. So the writing out is almost like a guarantee that you will follow through.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you think it makes a difference if you have some accountability partners as well to do the resolution alongside of you rather than doing this on your own?
Yes, yes, it definitely does make a difference to have an accountability partner to come alongside you. We are created to be in relationship. To do something challenging with someone beside you is always a good thing. It's always a boost when someone is there to cheer you on, right? Or to help you get back up on your feet when you've fallen short, which happens to all of us too. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. So what do you think about couples making resolutions together? Is it a good thing or is it a recipe for marriage squabbles?
As a couple, yeah. So you have to remember your spouse is your closest human neighbor, and they should be your closest human friend. So it's actually a great idea to make resolutions together. You become each other's accountability partner, but this has to be done really, really carefully. So your relationship has to be in a good place, because what you're essentially doing is you're going to be bothering each other, criticizing each other, nagging each other a little bit as you're each other's accountability partner. And if your relationship isn't ready to handle that, you're going to cause problems in your marriage. So if your marriage is actually in a bad place, maybe your goal should be improve your marriage first and then work on some other stuff after.
Yeah, 100% makes sense. So what if you fall off the wagon? Should a person make a backup plan for when the plan fails?
There's rarely a question of if you're going to fall off the wagon. It's only a matter of when. It happens to all of us, right? And it's a matter of what are you going to do about it when you fall off the wagon? And when you do, you have three options. Try again from the beginning, get back on the wagon where you left off and continue from there, or give up. There's also the matter of whether you framed your resolutions correctly. And if you didn't, you're much more likely to fail. A great example of this is the common resolution of wanting to lose weight. When a person plans to lose something, in this case, weight, the body sees that as a possible threat. It's a brain thing. So it's better to frame a goal as a gain. So instead of losing weight, it might be better for a person to plan to gain health or gain strength, and then plan accordingly from there with that goal in mind of gaining strength rather than losing weight.
And of course, like you said, it's not a matter of if, but when you fall off the wagon. So when that happens, of course, we can so criticize ourselves for it. So any advice on self-criticism when we fail?
Self-criticism is a crazy, crazy thing. The best example I can give, a long time ago when we were actually in training, I was sitting with a mentor of mine and telling him about all my own failures. That, you know, there were these goals in my life that I had wanted to achieve, and I hadn't achieved them. And he kind of looked at me sideways and he said, why don't you do yourself a favor and give yourself a break? And that's become our advice to people when they fail. You are going to fail. You are going to criticize yourself, but do yourself a favor and give yourself a break. You're not perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it right away. A goal is a goal. Let yourself go through the steps. Let yourself fall down a few times, and you will come out on the far end. So failure can actually be a good thing. When you fail, just quit with the self-criticism. And some people actually come to see us about the self-criticism problem. And one of the things we ask them to do is listen to whose voice is doing the criticizing. Usually it's not your own. Usually the voice that you're hearing is one of a parent or a sibling or a grandparent or a teacher that's maybe not even in your life anymore. And that person is still controlling you, even though they're not here right now in your life. So you have to find ways to actually blow those voices out, quit listening to the people in your past that criticized you, and just be you. Give yourself a break.
Wow, that's really deep. So do you think that we're also maybe setting goals that are maybe a little unrealistic or unreasonable, and that can also cause us to fail and then self-criticize? We kind of get into that cycle. Are we maybe setting too many goals and then we can easily lose focus?
Well, there's the problem of too many goals, but there's also the problem of making the goal too big or envisioning it as too big. And in order for us to actually succeed at goals, we need to break it down into particular pieces. And for that, some of the listeners may have heard the acronym SMART goals, but we believe there's something called SMARTer goals. So if we break that down into its acronym, the first is be specific. So what exactly do you want? If I say to myself, I'm going to improve my marriage, that really doesn't mean a whole lot. If I said on the contrary, I'm going to improve my marriage by spending 1 hour an evening with my wife, just having conversation, that's much more specific. And our brains actually understand that. It's something that our brains can work towards. The second letter, M, is that it has to be measurable. So measurable creates a system by which you can actually see progress. So if my goal is this big thing, and I'm only successful when I get to the big thing, I've really failed all along the way. If part of a plan to gain health is to lose 20 pounds, then I've only succeeded when I lose 20 pounds. But if I say I want to lose 1 pound a week, those are measurable steps. Another analogy that we can use is fundraising. Probably everybody's seen a fundraising thermometer, right? A group of people wants to raise $10,000 and somebody makes a thermometer poster and it gets colored in along the way. And every time that gets colored in, that's a measurable step. And those are little successes, and everybody gets excited every time we get another step. And so the big goal isn't the key. It's actually all those little steps along the way that become huge successes, and it keeps the motivation going. So the third, the A, is that your goal has to be attainable. I've often said I'd love to be a Martian pioneer. Well, I'm 51. I'm not exactly in shape. And even if I could, and we can't travel to Mars yet, and even if we could, my wife wouldn't let me.
Or I wouldn't come with him.
Yeah. So it's not really an attainable goal. So why am I focusing on something that really I can't attain? For R, it has to be repeatable. If you're going to go jogging and you want to go jogging so you can run a marathon, are you going to run just once to practice and then run the marathon? You're going to fail. Or are you going to repeat the jogging over and over, a little every day for a period of time, right? And even if you have to quit for a while, you just begin again, and eventually you run your marathon. The T is for time bound. So if we create an open-ended goal, there's no urgency to it. So you can procrastinate on it, and then it's days or weeks or months or years before we ever do anything. Using that group analogy for fundraising, we're going to raise $10,000. Great, so what? Right? We have the rest of our lives to do that. No, we're going to raise $10,000 by December 31st. Now everybody knows we got to get to it. So the urgency makes you work harder. Now then there's the E, checking for ecology. So this is a part that most people miss when they set their goals. You have to look at what your life is or situation is going to be like when you've succeeded. Not just the goal, but what else is it going to do to you, right? For instance, again, if I'm going to do something like improve my marriage by spending 1 hour with Starlene every night communicating, what am I going to gain at the end of that? I'm probably going to get a better relationship. I'm going to get a happier house. I'm going to get happier children. But I also have to ask myself, what have I lost? And maybe I'm losing time. Maybe I'm losing time with my friends. Maybe I can't watch my hockey game every night, things like that. And if in the larger picture, all the things that I gain and lose aren't satisfactory, then I need to rework the goal that I have in mind. And finally, you got to ask the question, really? So in other words, what do I really want? So am I quitting smoking, for instance, because I want to? Or am I quitting because my wife hates the smell of me and is nagging me to quit? Because then it's her goal and not my goal.
We need to take a short break, but when we return, Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin joins us to discuss some of 2024's hot button topics for the city and what's ahead in 2025, including the plan to save the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center. That's next. Residents in Lethbridge have faced a lot of big issues this past year. And to discuss a number of those hot button topics, including the plan to save the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center, is Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin, who chatted with BCN's Hal Roberts. Take a look.
So Blaine, City Council decided to use both contingency funds along with surplus dollars from the current budget to support the LDE. That means there will be no additional property tax increase outside of the 5.1% already budgeted?
Yes, that's correct. So we use the contingencies and the main reason for using the contingencies and talking to our CFO is contingencies are there for an emergency. And we couldn't think of anything more emergent than this. And so for that reason, we decided to use that rather than increase the taxes from what was already put in place in 2022. So we heard loud and clear from the community that they just couldn't sustain an additional tax increase. And so this is the way that we did it. However, looking forward, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle now because, of course, there's no contingencies available for other emergencies that may come over the wall, and so we need to be able to put dollars back into that fund, and so hopefully that comes with cost savings and efficiencies that will be realized over the next couple of years prior to revisiting this.
Now, Blaine, some people were asking, why not just shut down the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center altogether, or maybe sell it off? Your thoughts?
That's a great question. And you know what? If we closed it down and mothballed it, there's still the costs. We still have the loans that are out there. It's the difference isn't as much as what people may think, because if you think about what we would lose. So for example, we've got an incredible facility there. Let's face it, anytime you drive by there, it's a beautiful facility. Now, we would not have the Whoop Up Days. We may not have Egg Expo. We may not have the Home and Garden. All these different things if it was mothballed. These are community events that the community absolutely love. The citizens of Lethbridge enjoy. And so we had to think of what was best. It wasn't the easiest decision because it's something that we didn't realize that we were going to have to work with. When I was first elected as mayor, I had no idea that this would be coming over the wall. And so we've have to pivot and look at ways that we can keep taxes down and yet keep this building open.
Now let's talk about the recent Lethbridge West by-election won by the NDP's Rob Miyashiro. Interesting how the city appears to be split kind of right down the middle here, Blaine. You've got a UCP MLA representing the east side and Nathan Newdorf, who's also our utility and affordability minister. And now Miyashiro will keep the west side orange. It's just bizarre. Like, I've lived in so many cities here in Alberta that are very conservative, but in Lethbridge, that's not the case here.
Yeah, you know what, we knew it was going to be close. And I mean, anyone you talk to knew that this was going to be a close by-election. And by-elections, of course, with voter turnout being a little less than in a regular election, it was too close to call. And so I've had the opportunity of working with both Rob Miyashiro and with John Middleton Hope and over council, and both credible candidates. And it is what it is, I guess, Al, is I guess the way we'll put it, but it is divided. Our community is, with it being a West being NDP and with East being Conservative, but we move forward. We'll work with anyone, and that's the most important thing. It's working with whoever is our MLA, and that's of extreme importance.
Now, Council voted unanimously to support a recommendation from the Safety and Social Committee to support the Lethbridge Police Service Master Plan. Blaine, would that include the potential of maybe more boots on the ground here in our city, or more police dealing with those who are stunting and racing around in our city?
This is something that is really exciting. This master plan, and the reason it is because right now we will be, as of next year, at a full staff complement within our police service, something that hasn't happened for, I'm going to say, decades, to be at the level of full complement. And so the chief is very happy with that. And I said, don't slow down, keep your work moving forward, keep hiring, retention, all of that. But we're going to have a lot more boots on the ground.
Does your New Year's resolution include eating healthier? Well, you're not alone. There are some of us, however, who want to take things a step further and pursue a vegan diet. Up next, a nutrition and fitness expert with Lethbridge Polytechnic explains what a proper vegan diet looks like. And if you're watching us online, that full interview is available on our YouTube channel.
Research that's linked to a vegan diet shows that the diet could lower risk for certain chronic conditions like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and certain types of cancers.